Hey everyone! Let's get back to Godot game development, shall we? Okay, so yesterday I worked a little bit, just a little bit, on this game project. So, the point, whoa, interesting. It moves with the player. Oh, that's an interesting bug. Okay, the day is starting really great. Yeah, I forgot that. So I have to make these objects. Okay, let me write that just now for the first prototype. So big fix is going to be make weapon stop level. Because right now they are following. I attach the weapons to the player for testing purposes. So if you don't move, no problem. I'm actually hitting the monsters, the little red cubes. You can see that in the output console. But if I move, the weapon moves with me. But this is so cool. You can spawn infinite amounts of explosions in there. Wow, not infinite, but that's interesting. So the game is all about using various fire attacks to kill everything in front of you, right? So you have 3 attacks. The fireball, which is 2 in 1 because you can have a normal fireball, slow one. So if I'm a little far from the wall, you can see that it's not very fast, but you have the charge fireball, which is, it should be even faster. Let's see. Oh. Should be in fireball. Not particles, just the pure raw fireball, and I'm looking for fireball big here, and fireball big should be a lot faster, something like that, so twice the speed of the normal fireball maybe. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, that's good. So you're going to have a little charge wave later, but you can essentially spam the normal fireball, but the charge one is going to be much faster, deal more damage, and heat up the character a lot more, and that's what I'm going to work on next. So the game is all about managing your character's temperature. That's where the game jam's theme comes in. And so, yeah, you have a simple character controller that I added after the stream yesterday. So this character can walk. It can walk at 2 different speeds. If you use the flamethrower, you slow down, but you can also dash with the flamethrower, and you get that nice particle effect. When you dash, by the way, I've got to make it so the flamethrower throws flames behind the character, but I've got to take note of that as well. I guess it will be in prototype 2. Emits behind on dash either I've got to make it so it either emits behind the character because the effect is not bad, or to make it not emit at all if you are dashing, and only, yeah, I've got to think about that. But there are a few problems with the dash because of, like, whoa, what's the problem? Interesting. First time I have another bug here with this flamethrower area. Okay, so I'm going to work on the temperature next because that's even if there are bugs, it's not very important at this point. I mean, the project is a little bit complex already, managing 4 attacks. Plus, there's the last one that I've not implemented. I've got to add it, by the way, because it's quite important. Explode attack. So, the game is all about balancing those attack mechanics, and you're going to have some penalty if you use, like, your, how can I say? Your heat goes up too much. So let me get the chat, by the way. Hola, hola, Jorge. Falo português se quiser. Pouquinho mais posso falar. Can I use Google API with Godot, for example, Google Maps? Technically, you can. Is that easy? To be fair, I have no idea. I know that you can hook to JavaScript events in the HTML5 export, and there's also someone who made Node.js bindings for Godot. So there are quite a few options, but I can't tell you how you would do that. And thank God we have coffee. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks. So the entire code is open source, and by the way, one of the goals with this project is to make clean code. So it's not your typical jam game where you have lots of files, like a mess of files in a folder. There are, actors separated with health nodes, the player and monster script. Like the player is a state machine, so if I open it, it's already fairly organized. I've reused some code from my Godot course and the work I do, but I'm expanding upon it. Like I've improved the state machine code again a little bit. So now the character that moves and the state machine are separate, and you have the state machine that owns all the states directly. It's much cleaner that way. And I really want to, I'll update, I'll push it to the official demo, because I've made an official Godot demo for that, right? That's part of the engine. I think it's still not merged. I really need to find someone who can review and merge the demos, because I've got a lot that are waiting are obsolete, but I've got 2 waiting that could use a review. And I've also changed my programming style to follow the official programming guidelines, which I didn't until now. I used Python style, but now it's GDScript style. And yeah, that said, I'm going to work on temperature. So when you're working on a new component like that, let me explain temperature. So when you fire an attack, when you use a fireball or anything, it's going to increase the character's temperature. Then, depending on the attack you use, if you use the flamethrower or something like that, the temperature is going to increase more. Okay, there's really an issue with the flamethrower at the moment. Damage shape spawner. Because it's not a damage source, but who is it? How is it hitting the monster? I think it's interesting. Flamethrower. Okay. So, when you heat up your character, it's going to catch on fire and start losing health. At the same time, if you really push the heat with that last attack in particular, that's going to be very powerful. So the fire wave, you push the heat, the screen is going to start to shake, and then you'll have a big explosion like the bombs you have in shooting games. The idea is have something that will really destroy enemies in a wide area to help you get away from situations. So when you are overwhelmed by enemies, which is one of the things I want in this game, you're going to use that fire wave. The character is going to start to shake. The fire wave should, I should add that. Fire wave should slow down enemies, something like that. So it's going to slow down enemies. The character explodes, then kills everything, but you take a huge amount of damage at that point. You lose a lot of health. And we're going to have a small gauge to manage that. And the character can walk on water pools as well to lower the heat or to manage it. So while you are on a water pool, you may use, for example, the flamethrower. I'm going to fix that right now. Is it the damager? it does inherit from damage source. So where is it? It's on the flamethrower, I guess. Damager spawner. It doesn't extend damage source, that's why. So I guess we just need to fix that. Let's find you in the file system. And yeah, you're just going to inherit from damage source. Okay. All good. So the game is a lot about that, and as far as regaining health, I don't know yet. Oh, and I'm going to do one more thing here. Interface, temperature gauge, life bar. So I'm going to try and show you a few things at the same time. Like why and how, for example, I'm using different objects. For instance, the health. So initially it was Lars. I talk about him quite often. He's been kind of a mentor. You know, he offers a lot of help and shares his knowledge. Quite a lot. So he's a former AAA game developer and now a game development teacher at university or a college level game dev school. And so he recommended to use aggregation as much as possible, to have nodes that can live on their own, like this health node. It's not the absolute cleanest code, but it works for now. And this one is, you know, you have a simple interface. I can't fold everything, right? So you have this health node. You can change the character's status. It can take damage or heal itself. And you can attach it to any character. And once you have a health that lives on its own somewhere, you can very easily have some interface that is going to look at the actors in your game and it's going to check, does it has a health node? If so, we spawn a life bar on top of it, but completely separate. That is to say, in the final game, you may have, for example, I have my player monsters, etc. here. I may have my characters under a Y-sort node, so they are sorted automatically by their Y-axis, so you can see that in the editor. When the player comes in below the monster, it's going to appear in front. Okay, so that's what Y-sort does. And you may have some interface somewhere else, and have life bars in the interface that follow the characters and that update when the characters or the health takes damage or heals, for example, and animate and all, but that are completely separate and decoupled. And Godot makes it easy with the signals system. By the way, let me check the chat. Hey, Lava Snake Gaming. Can I export to iOS using my Windows without Mac? No, exporting to iOS. So Apple is really locked. How can I say? In general, they make it so you have to use their technology to publish on their technologies, essentially. I don't know if can you even cross-compile to Mac from Windows or Linux? Like you can compile a Windows program from Linux, and I think vice versa, right? But yeah, Apple is a walled garden. They like to really, well, they're a huge corporation at this point, so it's normal they like to kind of fortify their presence and build native tools as well for some things. Like apparently Metal is not that bad. I don't know. That said, I said Metal is not that bad. I have little idea of that because I don't have experience working low level, so I shouldn't say that. But apparently it's optimal in terms of performances because it's made by Apple for Mac and iOS. So Metal, by the way, is, you know, there's that thing about OpenGL being deprecated on Mac, which is not too important at this point, but essentially Apple already made it so you have to use their own replacement API, Metal, which is the Mac equivalent, I could say, of DirectX, maybe. And yeah, people have been freaking out a little bit about that, although there's Vulkan that's cross-platform at the moment. All right, so let's get started on the temperature node. So to test such a node, I'm going to create a new scene because I want it to work in isolation from everything. So this scene is going to be my temperature tester. And I'll save it in actors, temperature, I guess. It's an important mechanic, so it should have its own folder. But that's why I'm going to save the temperature node, actually. So let's create that. Save this as a scene, because we want to reuse it across actors. It may only be on the player, but you never know. So that's the joy of game development. Better keep it anywhere. Keep your file system should represent your project structure, like just browsing the files. It's something I learned now starting to make open source projects. It's extremely helpful to have your files representing your project structure, and surprisingly enough, a lot of projects don't have that anymore. They have I saw that talk about project architecture, and I was quite impressed to see the guy was going through web frameworks, and he was like, look at this project, what is it? This is a Ruby on Rails project, this is project made with React and that thing. But do you know what it does? Looking at the folder structure? No, you can't know, because it's all about asset management and pipeline, and it's actually very hard to understand how the application works by looking at the folder tree. While here, I'm not saying it's ideal, it's still a prototype, it's still a project that's just getting started, but you look at the folders and you see you have actors, environment, interface, prototype, utilities, visual effects, and weapons. So there are weapons, there are actors, you can guess that there's some fighting in there. And as you dive into the folders, you may see you have a player. Oh, I have a player state machine. Oh, I have a state folder. I can open the player's scene. You know, this is kind of part of your file system. If this was regular C++ code or something, all these would be separate files and classes under these subfolders, what you find in states, for example. And you can start to look at that and be like, well, I know what the player can do. Can move, can dash. So with any of these behaviors, if you have a bug or something as well, you know where to go. There's only one place where you can fix that, right? And that's also why, compared to the FSM example that I put on GitHub, I'm going to fix it after the jam. That's why I also separated the player state machine that only manages the states from the player that's going to move, update its direction, and things like these. All right. Without further ado, let's work on temperature. Temperature test. I do have to add a script on the base scene. I'm going to call you temp.gd. Empty templates. Okay. Now, when you're working on something like that, my first step would be, so normally I would do this maybe on paper, or here in Emacs, I can do it here. I think of it, so I can use my Scratch folder, my Scratch buffer. Okay, so I'm in a text editor right now called Emacs, and I want to think about my temperature object. So we can add, increase the temperature. I'm going to think about how it should work with action verbs. first. So try to think of my temperature object as a small machine and think about what's happening inside of it. So we have to manage the temperature. We can increase or lower it. And for now, that's about it. Is there anything else to do? Then it's going to emit signals. So I guess temperature updated. I can start with that. And then let other people react to it. It's going to be person-based. How is it going to work? I'm not sure how it would best work for the explode mechanic. So my guess is that to explode, you would build the gauge, and then when the gauge is full, it starts to shake stronger and stronger. That's mostly visual, right? But it's about the gameplay and the game feel right now. It starts to shake, and after a few moments, so maybe time-based, in this case it explodes. So essentially, if the temperature stays at the maximum for a certain amount of time. So the temperature object doesn't need to know about that. Only as the explode is going to be a player-based attack, it only needs to know when temperature reached 100%, and then the interface also starts to shake when it reaches 100%, and then a timer starts or something like that. And as long as you keep the temperature up, if the temperature doesn't go down, then it's like boom. One thing I've got to think about is what happens, because a waterfall is going to call the lower function, and you also want the temperature to gradually decrease over time. So maybe I want to use the process loop in this case to always, like on every tick, we manage the temperature, and that's when we can check if the temperature was updated or not, you know? Because if you emit the temperature updated signal from an increase in a lower function, the problem is if you stay on a waterfall, it may call the lower function, and if you attack at the same time, it may call increase, so it may send the temperature updated message twice. You don't want to do that. You want to compose all the forces that increase or lower the temperature. So I guess it's going to be increase rate and lower the rate. And then in process, work with the temperature rate like that. Thinking about what you're going to code every time, it's very important. So with that, I can copy these few lines. I've used action verbs so that I can reuse them in GDScript. Function lower rate, function increase rate, amount. Well, I guess it's going to be all person-based. Okay, and we're good to get started, and we'll need one member variable called two variables, var amount or var temperature. It's going to start at 0, and we're going to have the variable rate, and it's going to start at 0 as well, because at first you don't. So rate means per second. And one thing is, some attacks will, like the fireball, I wanted to increase the temperature by fixed amount. So we also need increase lower rate, but we're going to have a function called increase. So this one will instantly increase the temperature, and maybe in this case we can call temperature updated as well in this increase method. Okay, so in process the base is we're going to have a new temperature on every tick. So it's going to be equal to temperature plus rate times delta. But we also want to take the minimum of 0 and maximum of this and 100. So in one line we are saying okay, calculate, take the temperature, add, so integrate the rate and clamp it between 0 and 100, which I should really use clamp now that I think of it. It's the same thing, right? Using a clamp or min-max, but we have a clamp function, so that's probably what the clamp function does under the hood. It does a minimum and a maximum, that's it. Maybe there's a more efficient implementation though, I don't know. So that's it. If the new temperature is not equal to, if new temperature is equal to temperature, we return. Otherwise, we assign the new temperature to temperature and we emit temperature updated, or I'll call it, typically I want to call it changed. And I want to pass in my new temperature. Okay. We use a variable inside the process method to make sure that we can compare the new and the previous temperature, but we don't want to store it out there. The idea is, as much as possible in programming in general, if you can put the variables in a limited scope, variables that don't exist outside of the scope, like the new temperature, it prevents bugs, because the variables you put at the top here are, let's say, global to this class, and it's tempting to, as you increase the complexity of the script, to reuse it somewhere else, and it's prone to bugs and errors. Let's look at the chat real quick. Hello, LN Media, sorry. So, are you deviating from your previous video on project structure? No, it's the same. I'm just iterating on it. Slowly, you know, it's the same things you found in that video. The idea is make the structure, the file system structure and the nodes in the tree represent what you are working on. I use Spacemax for org mode and NeoVim Vim where I can, but lately I just started using the built-in editor for the completion. It would be nice to have a language server equivalent for GDScript. Actually, so there was a module for Vim and Emacs. I don't know if it's been updated for Godot 3. For Godot 2, you had to recompile with a module, and you could have auto-completion in Emacs, but also Atom, Visual Studio Code. You have a plugin for that. It's probably still, you know, it's probably still working. Just give me a second, I'm gonna get some more coffee. I'm right next to here, because this is the office, but this is also the kitchen. actually, when it's empty, it's quite convenient. And normally, it's not going to be too noisy until 12. There's someone we have a chef who's really talented, so she works at the Michelin star restaurant. But she, how can I say, on Sundays she's working early in general, like either early or she starts at noon, so right now it's 9:15, and so she's going to be either she's already gone or she's going to wake up a little late. Okay, so increase rate, rate plus equals amount, and there's going to be a maximum, but so these functions you're going to see very simple, and don't be afraid to have very simple methods in your classes at times. Okay, I'm back. But the idea about having methods is to have these action verbs that explain what is happening. So it documents that I'm going to lower the rate or increase the rate at which the temperature updates. And I can clamp that rate, so for that I'm going to add some exported variables. I said you don't want to use too many variables, but don't be afraid to use exported variables. And one thing I do is I use all caps often for them to indicate to my teammates or to myself that these variables are not meant to be changed. They are constants, but I'm not using the const keyword that you have access to in a GD script to lock the variable, because I want them to be edited from the inspector by the game designers. So working alone, that's me, but I can go to the inspector and edit it, which is becoming even better in Godot 3.1 with the new inspector, right? So export the variable max rate, or maybe I should call it rate max rate, and it's going to be 20% per second. And we clamp, no, we're going to set it to the max of rate, max rate. And here we're going to use the minimum of 0 and rate. So I can do it in one line. Here, kind of stupid optimizations you do as a programmer. Stupid. Rate is equal to the maximum rate and max rate, or minimum of 0 and rate. Okay, and now my increase method is a little different. I'm actually going to have okay, if I'm using increase, maybe I should call it decrease as well. You can see how this is not your typical jam code, right? I'm always thinking about the self-documenting aspect of the code and the educational part, because after the jam I want to just go review the code and maybe have someone else review the code if I can. And make sure that I can do maybe a little video overview and send people to, okay, you can grab the code, you can start working with it and look at how you can structure, one way to structure such a game. And using consistent names is quite important in that, you know, increase rate, decrease rate, increase or decrease. So temperature plus equals amount is equal to the maximum of temperature and 100. And we also call the temperature changed signal. And we're going to pass in the temperature this time. Okay. And next up, we're going to add the decrease method, so we subtract the amount. Ohayo. ライブしているけど大丈夫? So I have the nicest roommate. She's very flexible, so that's really cool. If you want to be famous, you can drop behind the camera. Give me beer, pizza, and money. Eh, 昨日引っ越した方が来てね、新しいなんていう How do you say housemate in Japanese? 19人19人で新しい19人が来て全然料理しないやったはい4人もう4人はい全然できないまあ簡単なことだけ味噌汁とかと言ってまあちょっとまだ冷蔵庫は多分ちょっと使うけどいっぱい使わない小さい分がいえ言わなかったけど全然料理しないから素材はあんまりいらないと自分のフライパンとかいらないと思う外で食べればね Okay, sorry. We have someone who just moved in to the share house. Let me check the... Do I always have to manually update my Godot 3 client? I couldn't find the option for auto-update or check for updates. Hashtag aliens asks. On Windows, yes, you have to. Unless you use the Steam version where it's automated. And that's about it. He has a French accent and speaks Japanese. That's something. Do I have a French accent? No. I don't think I do. This is a French accent in English. But I'm French. Yeah. But I may have some. It's pronunciation in foreign languages is especially hard when you come from the French like language and pronunciation. But in general, native English speakers don't think I'm French. They think I come from another country that I may be, like you can hear I'm not native, for sure. I've had people say I have a German accent, a lot of times a Dutch accent for some reason. And oftentimes people just ask, like, where's your accent from? I don't know that accent. Okay. Alright, so our temperature object is done. It doesn't do much, right? It just processes. And that's it. It's just going to process all the time. One thing I'd like to be sure is... Okay, so I just want to be sure that it's going to work, staying at 0, 100, that I will get a pure 100 value and not some floating point errors. So I'll have to check that. Okay, so I'm going to create my little test scene now. Temperature test. This one's going to have a custom script. So it's a throwable script. I don't really mind that it's not named like the rest of the project, etc. So temperature test, we're going to listen to some... maybe I'll use a... Okay, I'm going to change you to a control node, and turn you into a bit of interface. I'm going to create my gauge straight, so this is going to be temperature bar. And I need some sprites now, so I'm gonna do them in Affinity Designer because it's faster to create them as vector and to export them. I can do that almost instantly. Hey Sekaras, thanks for joining. I'm afraid... Why don't you make videos in French anymore? So the same person has been bugging me for 2 years. Has it been 2 years now? Yeah, the same question. Because there's just too small of an audience in French, and I've already said it in the past, but the international community is warmer than the French users. Like, I used to get some insults when I made videos in French from French people. Kids or something, but yeah, French people are more aggressive. Some French people are more aggressive than other cultures for some reasons. But I keep seeing, even in the Godot community, sometimes, like, people who are just, you know, the comment sounds really negative because it's just part of the culture, making critiques like these. Okay, I'm going to duplicate my artboard here, clean it up, and because I had the grid set up on it. And let's see, for this one, I want a fixed grid with no gutter. Alright, 64 pixels, and we're good. So that should be... Wait. Okay, I'm gonna use the game size. It has divisions. Alright, we're all good. So, gonna create fire gauge. Should it be vertical? Should it be circular? I wonder. You know what? Let's make it circular just so that later I can turn it into a flame with a shader. Something like that. So, what size am I gonna make it? Seems about right. Okay. And obviously, I'm gonna make it something... wait. If I make it red from the start, I'm going to make it white because I want to use the modulate property. So I don't want any of that. I don't want any stroke. Okay, so we're going to make it a white circle. That's going to be the inside, and for the background, we're going to have something... come on. For the background, I want something that helps me read the object, some out stroke. So it's just about readability at this point, right? Okay, I'm gonna do something like that. Alright, so it's going to be background, foreground, the artboard interface. Note that I've contacted an add-on developer and, well, a technical game artist who's working with Krita, Andres Ezo, who makes the COA tools for Blender, to see. I've seen he was working on a like an add-on to make it easier to batch export assets to his tool, and I contacted him to see if it'd be okay with having me on board to work a little bit on like his tools, and bring some of that functionality in Krita. So you wouldn't be able to edit slices and all with a Python script, but batch export based on the names you have in the layer system. It already has the code in place. Just want to check and maybe help add a few more options. So let's export to the bar folder. I'm going to manually export there. Okay, so let's grab the two slices, and I'm gonna go to interface temperature And we're going to save you right there for now. Gonna call you bar, maybe. All right. So Abufraid says, I don't understand English, but I'm a subscriber. And ici, il fait jour, oui. So just, he asked me to answer in French. J'habite au Japon, à Nara. It's more efficient. So Dennis says, I listen to all videos in 2x. Yeah, it's a lot of a matter of patience. It's all a matter of patience, I think, is two times is a little fast, in my opinion. Okay, let's remove the person's don't want a progress bar. I want a texture progress like that. Now I'm going to look for, I can't search folder, so no. Is there a way to jump to the folder when I look for a file? No, doesn't seem so. Actually, do I have modulate properties on the foreground? Oh, so this is under. And the progress bar. Let me expand the inspector. I mean, I have some modulate property that's going to modulate the entire gauge, right? Not just the main texture. Is there any way to modulate only the progress texture? I wonder. I think not. I would have to swap the texture at runtime, maybe? And I want it to go from bottom to top. Okay, so let's make it red or something like that then. Make you a little bigger, tiny bit, or a tiny bit smaller, like that. Okay, we'll do the trick. Okay, and we're going to use a gradient maybe. I have a gradient that feels a little bit like fire. Something like that. Something like that. Okay. How about this stroke now? Yeah, I don't want it to feel too vectory. I shouldn't waste time with colors. Let's use just some gray and we'll be good. And obviously revert the colors here. Alright. Re-export and we're good. Alright. So we have our gauge. Can play with the value a little bit, and we're going to connect the temperature change signal to the temperature bar, but first I need to save it somewhere. So temperature bar, I'm gonna save it inside my interface folder. Temperature bar. Alright, so I can add a script that will end up in that folder. And we're just going to connect temperature change signal for now. Okay, well, good. So now we have that. I can add a few interface bits to see how my temperature is working. So we're going to have on temperature test. Well, we're going to use the input to test it. So let's say we fire a fireball, mouse left. Do we use signals? How am I going to broadcast to the temperature? Actually, should I use signals? No, I think not. I should directly use its interface. Temperature dot increase by, say, 20 on mouse left. On process. Do we set the rate or do we increase it? No, we want to. How do I do it properly? If I make a special, well, the temperature is only going to be on the player. The thing is, when I start using the flamethrower or the wave, I want the temperature to, the rate to increase. And then when I release, I want it to go back. But I want this to be precise. If I'm using floating point values, I'm not sure it's going to be that precise. Maybe I'll start to accumulate. Well, it's not too important in a game, but advice welcome in there. How would you handle this? I really like that progress texture today. I learned something new already. Thanks. Particles can be a little taxing on your GPU if you have lots running. When you have scenes open in the editor, even if they are in the background, I've noticed that it makes the GPU run, so I guess that's still rendering all the scenes real time running in the background. Right? So if you have lots of particles in other scenes, you may just get that. Okay, so let's try this. If we have mouse right, we're going to temperature.increase rate by 3.0. For now, let's keep it simple. Game jam setting is action released. Mouse right, we're going to decrease the rate. Okay, and I want some label to print all of that on the screen. So some label, and I'm going to use Okay. Let's create dynamic font here. Save that my fonts in the interface font folder. Alright, I can reuse it later. This one is going to be also black 48. There we go. Okay, seems good. It's somewhere on the screen. Doesn't matter where that is. And from this node, we're going to update. Well, I guess label. It's going to have its own script in the prototype folder for now, so that I can do this. Temperature changes, we update the label. So what are we going to write? We want to see we're going to grab two things. So something I wouldn't do too often, but for testing purposes, no problem. What? Ah, I have to put it in quotes when I do that. Text is going to be temperature but I think you have some issues when you do that with tabs, right? Temperature, okay. And we're going to use rates, percentage, and rate. Okay, I'm just trying to print some information on the screen. Let's see. I started at 80, obviously, so... Hey, hold on. Started at... minimum. Okay, so first bug. Maximum of 0 in temperature, so if temperature is negative, maximum, so the minimum, and the maximum. I just inverted the functions. All right. So one thing with Godot is as an open source project like that, often you can rebuild from the source. Okay, so first bug, right? You can rebuild from source, and I mean, well, you would want to work in production with a stable version, but it turns out that the new features are pretty stable most of the time. So if you don't use bleeding edge features, you can... If you were working in a team, it's fine to follow development, and when a feature comes in, like some new editor or something, to maybe pull it in, to like pull the commits to a fork of the engine or something like that. You can do something like that because there are lots of bug fixes getting in all the time. It's not for like the individual users if you're working, just like me, same thing. No, but you could do that, no problem. So it's action, press mouse right, increase, decrease the rate. It's not reliable. Why is that? Normally it should call this function, input event, when I press and release, like that. It works from the second time. I approach, stop. But it does not. So why? That's quite interesting. First time I release, right mouse, it doesn't decrease the rate. No reason to have any difference in there, but okay. Why is that? I don't know. I have no idea why it's not working. What if I change the order then? It shouldn't solve it, but yeah. First time I click. Okay. So now even if the rate is positive, I right click, I don't get. Interesting. So if I try to work this way, may have some problems. Okay, aside from that, the temperature node itself seems to be working fine, so if event up is key, no, don't do it this way. What other actions do I have? Let's see. Okay, so UI down, I guess. Going to if you have questions, don't hesitate, by the way. So decrease, say by 10. So maybe it's going to be a little more reliable from the player because it's not going to work based on input. It's going to work based on the attacks, right? So signaling to either signaling to the temperature or controlling the temperature from where? I wonder. Okay, but it's fine for now. So that the temperature bar is working. Let's go back here. Temperature object. I need the water pools. Temperature gauge. A life bar is going to be very simple as well, but let's add the water pools. So new area 2D. Water area, I guess. Let's give it a collision shape, collision polygon 2D. Use the grid in here and create a little area. Oh, I want you to snap. Okay. So we're going to have our little area, and this one. It's going to be as simple as, what do I want it to be? Character hitbox. We're going to add a new layer. To the physics layer, and we're going to call it water. Okay, and you're going to be on the water layer. That's about it. You don't want to mask anything. Other things will detect it. So the water area. Yeah, what does it need to have? It's quite simple. I'm going to put it in the environment. Water, already had the folder. Water area, give it some water area script. And cooling rate. A small tip, something you can do. You can use Shift F2. Is it? No. Shift F3 then? No. Shift F4? Yeah. Shift F4 to capitalize the selection. So Shift F2, caps case, not caps case, title case. Shift F3, snake case or lower case. And Shift F4, uppercase. And this is a variable. We're going to set it to, I don't know, 10.0 by default. How about the temperature? So I want you... Rate. There's a little bit of an issue with my rate thing because I still want the temperature. So when the... I think I'm going to have an increase rate and a base cooling rate, right? Max rate, base cooling rate. It's going to be 2.0. So something like when you stop using the flamethrower, you walk around, slowly your heat goes back down, but you still need to walk on water pools to have it go down faster, right? And so the new temperature here, we're going to make it minus base cooling rate times delta. I'm going to split that line up because it's quite bad. Hey, why don't I? Oh, okay. Sure. Doesn't appreciate that much. Zero, 100. So we add rate times delta minus base cooling rate times delta. And with that, we've got, obviously, in our testing scene, we've got to make this flamethrower rate a lot higher. And make sure that we take it in account. Yeah, so I'm going to add a new composite rate or something variable. Yeah. Small spider. Yeah. Let me check the chat. Where did you learn all of the GDScript shorthands, shortcuts? And I want to say that I appreciate all your tutorials. Thanks. Thank you very much. Where did I learn all that? Looking at the docs, asking people. I mean, I make tutorials for Godot, so I do a lot of reading on like the GitHub issues, using, you know, the built-in search. I go through all the menus where you have the shortcuts, and if you go to the editor settings and to the shortcuts tab, you can see all the shortcuts in there. So that's a few of the ways I learned them. But if you go to the edit menu, convert case, you will find these shortcuts here. For example, okay, well, I'll just have to report on the base cooling rate manually. Okay, so temperature rate, it's going to be rate minus base. There we go. Yeah, now it stays stuck, but I do get the cooling rate, and well, for the area, I'll have to use the character to test it. So we lower the... How do we do that? Is there, do you have an idea? Is there a cleaner way to do this than increasing and lowering and decreasing the rate? Is there a way to maybe create a list? It's a bit of a pain, so you'd have an array of the rate sources, and it can be positive or negative, and you create a composite rate from that. Let's not bother for now. Call it a day. Okay, so the temperature object is done. The water area is done. And we need to connect it to the player now. Let me open the player scene. Of Fireball. Okay, so let's go to Fireball test. I'm going to add my water area in here. I don't need this to be white salted, but let's do something like that. Okay, so the water areas, I don't need to connect anything, right? Just going to have the player's hitbox detect them. Okay, so let's see. How do I make sure that the player can detect these areas and understand that this is a water area? The player's hitbox, when an area enters it, it's going to take damage. I'll just create... Okay, let's keep it simple. So the water area is on the water layer. One thing I can do is create a new detector node, like the hitbox, but that's only going to detect the water. A very simple script that's going to say, okay, you're walking on water now. So let's create an area 2D again. Call it water detector. So when I'm working at that point, I'm not thinking about like... Hold on. I'm not thinking about performances at the moment. So let's duplicate collision polygon 2D. You shouldn't think about it until you're fairly late in the game development cycle. So as an indie, you want to be careful with that, but it's easier to optimize the game later than when you have the mechanics in place and all that stuff. You can start to profile things that really cost on performances. And if you try to think of performances as you go, you're going to waste a lot of time because it's time consuming. Optimized code makes your code harder to read. And often you could solve performance issues by, if you have something really taxing on the CPU, so a GDScript thing that's really hitting you hard, which a few areas are not going to do that. If you have that, you just move some stuff to C++ or GD native, for example, or maybe you could move some code to C#, or also refactor the object that's really taxing. You know, there are lots of things you can do, like pooling or things like these. But you don't want to optimize too much in advance. And if you like split your objects like that, so you have lots of individual nodes that live as individual scenes, you can really pinpoint the scene and system that is costly, and it's very easy to refactor. Like my water and water detector, it's just one object that I can isolate from the rest of the game. Water detector, I'm going to put it on the actors, call it And no, I wanted to save the scene actually. Water detector, any actors. What time is it? 10 o'clock? For how long have we been running so far? I'm not going to keep the stream for too long, but my housemate is going to study a little bit, so it can be a bit disturbing if I talk all the time. And anyway, gotta focus after that. Focus on code and the jam. Will you ever make a tutorial on profiling, or have you made one? I haven't made one. Eventually, yes. The profiler is getting some improvement, so I'd like to wait for these before covering it if the UI changes in any way, but also wait to have a project that's large enough so we can start to show that, so we can start to poll different areas of the project, because even if you have, it's cool to have a minimal example, but make sure that you also have the project to show the size and scope you need before you start profiling. And for that, this project, I want to open source it after the jam and see if some people want to help beef it up a little bit, and then I could make a tutorial on profiling. But I've got lots of tutorials to make at the same time, so it won't come anytime soon. I would say after 3.1. Okay, so once I have the water temperature in place, I'm going to stop the stream. Anyway, I need a short break. Quite tired. I've been working the entire week, yesterday as well. I don't take too many days off, actually, although I should. So I need to take lots of short breaks. I'm up since 7, you know, I've been working since I'm up, so I need to take short breaks to stay fresh and focused. Okay. The water detector is not on the water layer, it's on no layer, but it's going to mask the water. And it's going to have a signal logged on. How can I do that? Water entered, exited. Culling rate. Because I think we get the area every time, so. Okay, so because the water detector only masks, so it only listens for the water layer, and the water area is only on this layer, we can safely assume that when we detect an area at that point, it's only going to be the water one. So I'm going to connect area entered and exited on this node. Okay, so I'm not going to do it this way. It's a bit messy. Okay, let's do it from the code. So this time self.connect area entered self area entered, and I want same here. So in this selection, I'm going to replace place entered by exited. Should do the trick. Okay, and create these two functions. Normally I get the so I'll assume it's a water area, right? And in this case, I'm going to say emit the water entered signal. So this node acts as a filter. It just detects that you walked on water, right? We need an area to get that behavior. And then it's going to just broadcast a message so that the temperature node can receive it. If you hear singing, that's normal. my roommate studies English, and so she uses like songs. She listens to songs and lyrics to warm up in the morning. So let's emit water exited, and we only broadcast the information that the temperature node needs. We can assume that the water area has a cooling rate. In this case, let's see. Maybe I should just broadcast the object instead of the cooling rate, but okay, let's do it this way. All good. All right, so I'm going to bring in my temperature node. Temperature.tscn. Gonna put it next to the water detector. And so I'm going to connect water entered and water exited to my temperature node. So when we enter water, we decrease the rate by the cooling rate, and when we exit the water, we're going to increase the rate back. There we go. That's about it. And when we do that, we don't change the temperature. This is all handled in the process function, right? We just update the rate. Then the big question is, what do we connect to? Temperature changed. I think in my fireball test, just want to, okay, I want to print some stuff just to check. Just see if it works. Signal right at the moment. Temperature changed. Okay, so I'm going to bring in some interface bit from my temperature test node. I had test label here. Yeah, I'm going to save you, bad boy, as a scene. In my prototype folder, temperature test label, and I'll bring you in this fireball test. Whoa, countdown VLC. Test label. Let's bring you in right there, around the top. Let's look at the chat again. Have you tried other game engines, or Godot is the first one? I don't know who that question is for. I guess it's for someone else. For me, obviously, I've worked in the game industry for a few years, so I've worked with a few tools already. I worked with Unreal 3, Unity, and with Unreal 3, Unity, Construct, Multimedia Fusion. So back when it was Multimedia Fusion, so now it's ClickTeam Fusion, right? I've worked with, yeah, a few things. Okay, so I'm going to make children editable, connect temperature manually to the label. That should be good. Yeah, it will reuse that method. That's one thing. And now we need the code. Oh, I want my interface bit as well. right now the temperature doesn't change because there's no rate or anything. It's never being updated, right? So I need to add that on the player to make it change the temperature when we change the state. I have to think of where to put it. I'm not sure where it would be best. So that's one thing, and I'm going to bring in my I called it bar, right? Temperature bar in the interface. Let's put you at the bottom right here. And same thing, we're going to manually connect right now to my temperature bar. I don't have a script in there. Oh, I do. It was just not on it. So on player temperature change. Let's rename the method. Okay. All good. We have the interface connected. We have our label. Now we need to work on the player. So let me think. Where do we control? Where should we control the temperature? Direction, position, change. I think we're going to use the state machine. So when we change the state, when we enter, how it passes the stack. No, you don't pass the stack, my friend. Let me, I have to check in the project. Where's Commander? Didn't start it? Oh, come on. Okay. And I want to grab emit signal. I name this player. Okay, but I'm not using it at the moment. So I emit the stack, right? And I don't want to emit the stack. I want to emit the current state. And okay, fixed. So when the state changes, I'm going to emit the new state, and it's the object. Do I emit the new state or the state name? Idle move dash stagger. Ah, no, it's not correct. It's not on this that I want to. Yeah, the player state, the player weapon. I want to emit from the state machine. So signal state changed. Well, weapon changed, I guess. Weapon. Do I pass in the weapon or do I pass in the weapon name? Eyeball frame thrower wave. Yes, weapon name. Or weapon identifier if you want. And this is out. Let's see, where do I emit that? I'm changing the weapon in the set weapon active function. So there, I just want to check. Exit. Okay. So that I don't need anymore. Where do I emit the signal? Well, it doesn't matter. We exit the current weapon if there's one. Okay. That's why we change the weapon. So the weapon changes here. And we pass in the weapon identifier, I think. Let me check the chat. What was your first programming language? C. C when I was a kid, and it was a horrible experience. I was advised to start with C++ when I was maybe 13, and it disgusted me from programming. So then I didn't touch code for years, and I got back to it some time ago, but as a game designer I stayed away from code a little bit. I did more visual programming, a little bit of shader programming as well when I started out as a 3D artist. Yeah, horrible experience. Now I would really like, if I read C++ and all, it's no problem. I'm interested in pretty much all languages. I feel most comfortable with Python, GDScript lately because that's what I'm using, but that's about it. I mean, I don't mind JavaScript or something else. Yeah. But the first one was C. Okay, so we emit the weapon name, and we just emit a string, or do I use the weapon? Maybe I should. Problem is, so I could put the information, how much temperature it costs, on the weapon, but the flamethrower increases the rate, like it costs temperature over time, while the fireball is just going to cost, like, add temperature instantly. So I would need to encapsulate that. Maybe I will broadcast the weapon object, like a reference to the object, and put this info on the object. So let's see, where do I emit the signal? Okay, I'm going to broadcast the object, and then on each of the weapons, I'm going to add this piece of information. State 2D, I need a base weapon interface anyway. So let's add this. I'm going to create a new file, and it's going to be in the weapons folder. It's going to be my base weapon.gd. So each of the weapon is kind of a state. So right now it's using this an old it's a bit hacky, but it's using a script called state2d. It's a state interface. But yeah, so actually I'm going to remove that. I'm going to grab all this. At the moment that's how it works. Maybe later I can change it, but I'm going to make all my weapons inherit from that. Can handle inputs. It's not going to have any animation, but update, exit, enter. And now I wanted to have some base values. So I'm going to export two variables. Floating point, temperature, cost. It starts, well, at 0 because a few of the attacks will use temperature rate. Temperature cost, oh, I forgot the var keyword again, as usual. And temperature rate set to 0, so that way, so all of my weapons will inherit from that now. Let me go back to my weapon scene. The flamethrower, where I are all in the fire folders. Fire wave, up. That way, I can also use relative paths. So let's go weapon.gd, for all three of you. Flamethrower and fire wave. Okay. And so that way I can remove that script, which I shouldn't have had in the first place. But right now the weapons are like states, but they're also no 2Ds at the same time, right? So that they have a transforms. It's maybe it's not the best thing to do, but it works for now. And I can refactor that later. I have some cleanly decoupled things at the moment. Then to clean it up a little more, I would need someone who's a little more experienced than me to look into the code and, you know, suggest changes. Because in a jam setting, you also get a little bit tired, and you need to take a step back, come back to your code later to see how you can improve things. And I've improved things based on previous code that I made before the jam, but working with those weapons is a little new. That, like, I hadn't thought from the start about the fact that, you know, the attacks, they move with the character. Hold on. Did the fireball enter the... No, it's with the player. Water area dot cooling rate doesn't have it. Let me see. Yeah. Oh, it doesn't have any script. Yeah, okay. It's just... Hey, hold on. Just wasn't attached. Okay. Makes sense. And it's cooling rate in all caps then. Okay. So another way to do it would be to use the process loop and to use get overlapping areas, but yeah, no. Yeah, one way to manage the temperature instead of adding and lowering the rate would be to have a small array that stores the objects that are affecting the temperature. So you store a reference to the water areas, to the current weapon, things like these, and then on the temperature node you grab their rate or temperature rate, can be positive or negative, and you add all of that to like you calculate the rate in the process loop every time from the different sources. So that way you can remove sources as well instead of adding and subtracting the value. That's another option. A little more code though, and less. It would be way less intuitive. Let me move you back to the origin. All right. Are you drinking enough water while you're streaming? Actually, no. I think coffee tends to dehydrate you. Let me grab a cup again. But you know, right now it's Sunday. It's my 7th day working this week in a row, so I tend to forget things. Okay. What is next? I have to connect all that to the temperature object now. So water detector entered and exited. That's done. And then from the player, I also want to connect my weapon changed signal. 大丈夫？うるさくない？本当に後でもうすぐ終わる。はい。OK、いってらっしゃい。また。Okay, so when we change the weapon, because the weapon is a weapon, we can assume it has a temperature cost and temperature rate properties. So we will then call, not from the, did I connected it on, wait, did I connect you to yourself? Yeah, okay, little mistake. I want to connect you to the temperature. Not like that. I would like clean a name. Well, I guess, let's use the default. Okay, so connect to the temperature. And because the weapon is a weapon, we can but if we increase the rate when we change, yeah, that's why you would use sources. You need to remove the previous weapon's rate. What if you go straight from fireball to flamethrower or to the wave without going back to no weapon? Because not weapon. Yeah, I don't know what was the weapon's rate. That's little. Weapon reference is going to be no. Okay, let's try this for now as a placeholder. So we use weapon reference dots on temperature. Okay, so we decrease temperature rate. Okay, it's not going to be the cleanest thing for now, but let's start with this. Decrease the temperature at temperature cost. So what we have to do every time is make sure that when we change the weapon, we decrease the, we subtract the rate, and no, we don't decrease the temperature. We decrease the rate based on this weapon's temperature rate. So if weapon reference, if we have a weapon, we decrease the rate, and if the new weapon is not null, because we can have no active weapon, we increase the rate using temperature rate. We increase the temperature using its temperature cost, so it can increase by 0. And we set our weapon reference to the weapon. There you go. And from there, we might be able to test this out. So let's see. On base nil. So weapon current. Okay. is equal to weapons, weapon name. This does not work. What did I forget then? Use groups. Yeah, temperature is an interesting theme for the jam and for the game. Marino, no, I can't use groups here. And anyway, when... Like, no. No groups. The only thing is... Hold on. Can you get me the name so that I see exactly what that bug is? It's a fireball thrower. Okay, so when I throw the fireball... but the fireball thrower is not a weapon. Okay, I'm just... Hold on. No, it does extend weapon. It does extend weapon, so it should have... So hold on. Temperature cost, temperature rate. Let's see. Okay, let's try this. Print some info so we can see what's happening. Okay. No, not here. Here. Let's see. It's a null object. Okay. Okay. Why? Can you tell me? So, weapon reference is null. It's a null object. I'm checking if the weapon reference is not null, please print it. But it still runs that condition. What? 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 Okay, so weapon change. Okay, so update the weapon, finished. State machine says the weapon changed. Here's the new weapon, and that's an object. And here, it still runs that block. Why is that? The weapon reference is null by default. Interesting. So I messed up somewhere. You know, I'm not saying the contrary. Okay, so the new weapon works. You know, I can get... See, I can get the name of the new weapon. Works, no problem. Monster... today, monster is taking damage from the... By the way, Mariano, the thing with spawning shapes, Doesn't work. It's really like the fact that it's rotating. Maybe I need to make these areas top level as well. Maybe I need to make just maybe that's it. But I think maybe the fact that the area is rotating, you know, is not working. It's not reliable. Okay. So the new weapon, I get it. But what's the matter with that? Hold on. Let's head to the fireball thrower again. It is a weapon. What's that? What is happening? Let's use the hard-coded path. Save. Maybe I need to exit and restart so it reloads everything. It should not be a problem, but... I don't know if I messed up somewhere. Okay. So temperature, close all of the tabs. And I'm going to... Control K doesn't work. Okay, I've got to restart Godot. Gives me a second to check the chat. Ryston, how do you say it? My real world occupation is farming, so I was going to make a game revolving around building huge sort of magical compost pile, which emits heat, right? Maybe collect magic compostable items and then make your pile bigger and warmer, and that has some greater implication. Interesting. You shouldn't start with the assets, by the way. Marino is asking, what's that modulo operator between strings? So when you add the percent sign, you interpolate the string. So this is a Python 2-like syntax. This allows you to pass the variables as strings, but it's also, yeah, it's called string interpolation, I think. You can modify the string. I don't know the syntax by heart, but %s is going to turn that value, like force it to become a string. So you can reference variables that way. I do it by default because when you start to have two values, you can use an array and you can put your values right there. You can also name these values here and you can format them, for example. So maybe something like that to do zero padding, or you can, you know, have them as decimal numbers or things like these, and automatically convert integers or floating point values so that you can use them in strings. If I were to do something like that, so I put a variable in there, that's a floating point value. I don't have to use the string conversion function on it. This feature will take care of the conversion for me. Okay, let's see if it works now. Fireball. Yeah, I have the weapon. It prints the name. I'm accessing the weapon's name. Oh, okay. No. That's why. Okay, my bad. Big mistake on my end. All right. Now, the label. So temperature. Because it's hard-coded here. Yeah, so I can't get the temperature object anymore, right? I can only get... Yeah, okay, you're... How can we do that? Is there... I think there's a node path. object we can use. Oh, so hold on. Copy that. Okay. I have to check. Does it work like that? Not sure. Okay, let's try this. I'm going to manually grab, hold on, test label, and I want to go find my temperature node here, right there. Okay, so I'm getting a path to the node. I just want to check if node path is just a path, right? So node path pre-passed scene tree path. Can reference a node, a resource, a property, blah 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 blah. You must end the path with a colon. String to and for. It's interesting. This you can use that for performances, right? As well. If it pre-passes the path, you could get that. Interesting. Okay. It doesn't return. Get the node name. Okay, let's just see if I can pass it to get node. It takes a node path. Okay. So passed or not, like we can pre-pass it. Okay, let's see if this works. My test label. All right. Okay. Now it doesn't crash. That's a good step forward. Right. So back to my temperature. Increase the rate, and we increase by the temperature cost, but so here's why I use this interpolation thing. Okay, so the rate is this. Right, I can get 3 variables converted to strings in an instant. And the rate and cost are 0 because I did not set them. True. True, true, true. So we have to add that. My weapon state machine. It's in its own scene. And now, so the fireball thrower. But the fireball, it depends on whether it's charged or not. Okay, let's set you to 5. It's not going to work. For the rate thing, it works, no problem. Set you to 10 and the fire wave to 30. Okay, let's try this. At the basic level, it's going to work, but okay. You can see I can heat up. My rate works. It doesn't decrease. Because I don't use my weapon reference anymore. Let's go back here. There we go. But why? Why does it run that block? My weapon reference variable is null. It's null. And it says that right there. Oh, because I'm trying to get the weapon's name. There we go. Always, the problem is between the chair and the computer. Okay, it doesn't reliably decrease the rate at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, the system is really not reliable. Alright, so I've got to go back to the drawing board and think about that. Let's see. The water area. Whoa. Water area doesn't decrease. Water area entered. Decrease the rate. Yeah, okay, so I've got to find some way to plug in like cooling and heating sources in the temperature node. I need something a little more elaborate than what I have instead of the increase and decrease rate methods, because it's not working at the moment and I'm generating bugs for myself. Okay, so I'm not going to do that on stream. I need to take a break, think about it, and I'm going to close the stream pretty soon. Do you have any questions? John says something true. The node system is powerful, but it can be easy to screw up if you mess up something in node placement. Yeah, and so you slowly learn to use features like the node path system, groups, and to organize your nodes properly, like use lots of scenes and make sure that when you create a scene, it's self-contained. It doesn't try to access things that are outside of it. The more you do that, the more scalable your systems become. I mean, I'm making this game for a jam. You wouldn't start making a game that has such a system with... I should have started just with the fireball. You fire fireballs, and there's a... You cool down, but the fireballs increase the temperature, like that, and you stop there, right? And when you start with 4 attacks, like these, it's just a lot more complex. It's just a lot more complex. So right now I see one problem. I have the fireball thrower that you can charge, and it handles the charge and fires the fireball. But actually I need to split the fireball into 2 weapons, because you can have charge fireball and the normal fireball. And instead of, I have to handle the charge effect maybe on the player, or on, I'm not sure, going to have a charge node that when a charge state for the weapon, maybe, I don't know how to best handle it. But right now, there are 2 weapons combined in one, so it makes it hard to manage the temperature properly. And yeah, when you add complexity like that, the node system really comes in handy, but you do have to get used to doing things in a certain way. Okay, seems like there are no questions. Thank you kindly for joining. And yeah, I'm gonna take a break and then try to fix that. That said, time to cut the stream. Bye-bye.